Hey guys, this is Will from Willworks. We'll part out all your Protege part needs. Now this is a 2003 Mazda Protege5, and what's happening with these cars just with age is that they're starting to leak water from the firewall sealant, and you'll know this by a musty smell inside of the car, or if you lift up the mat, there's going to be water underneath, or even standing water depending on how badly the water's leaking. What you got to do to get to the sealant is pull off this panel. Just going to be one of these clips. You pull out the center portion and it comes out. Likewise on the other side, pull out the clip. This panel comes out. There's a fastener here, you just pull. Then you pull back the carpet. You can see there's some obvious signs of water inundation. And so this, like I said, this is a real common issue these cars are starting to face. But if you take a garden hose to this car, you'll see a little stream of water coming down through here. The seam is here where the firewall meets the body, but it's pretty tough to get to. So let's delve into it. All right. So honestly, it's kind of a pain in the ass job to do, but really this is the best way and most correct way to do it. You got to get in there, remove the old material, prime it, paint it, apply new seam sealant. But if it's just the passenger side, you can do this without pulling the dash. Now, if you're leaking water in the driver's seat or driver's side floor mat, or sometimes you'll get it with both, especially cars that have been lowered or have been in dry climates, you got to pull the whole dash. There's a lot of resources online on how to pull a dash, but that's not what this video is going to be. It's going to be just the passenger side, because we're lucky it's just leaking on this side. So what you're going to do, you remove the ECU plate. There's 4 10mm nuts, top and bottom, or 2 in the top, 2 in the bottom. Take it out. We're going to take out our glove box. I can just show you that. Well, there you go. Usually you just squeeze these two to clear these little rubber feet, and it comes out this way. And then what we're going to do is we have to remove the blower motor next, which is in here. And it's kind of a pain because that's your evap box, and there's AC lines running to it, which means there's compressed gas. Since we're just doing the passenger side, we can get away with just undoing this bracket here to give us a little bit of movement with the box. All you need is about 1 inch to clear, but these are the lines going into the interior of the car. Okay, so we're removing the ECU and ECU plate. I've already removed the 4 10mm nuts, top and bottom, like I mentioned. And there's a little tab here that you can squeeze to push out, just holding that wiring harness. And now there's a few ways to do this. I just removed one side, 10mm here, and one on the other side, and the ECU should slide out. Okay, so with that bracket removed, the ECU should be able to slide off of the plate, like so. Plate comes out, set that aside, and then the ECU itself is held on with a 10mm here in the back. Okay, quick note, if your ECU plate is totally rusted out like mine, or like this one that I've seen in the past, hit me up on Facebook or Instagram. I sell a bunch of these non-rusted ECU plates, likewise with ECUs or whatever else is messed up in there. Okay, so next what you want to do is remove the trim panel that surrounds the glove box area. It's just Phillips screws going all the way around it. Some there, some on the bottom. So we're just going to take out those, and that should pop right out. Okay, so the trim's out. I counted 10 of these Phillips screws, and you want to put these in a bag or a cup or something and set them aside. Make sure you don't lose stuff. Okay, so next we want to unbolt this little body control module. It's 10mm here, just to give us some more clearance. So with this little panel removed, or moved up out of the way, you can see that's the seam sealant. That's kind of our issue. It looks like it's discolored from some of that water leaking into the cabin. So what I'm going to do next is arguably the hardest part of this whole thing, which is removing, this is the blower motor here, is your evap core. And it's tough because, so this here is the evap core, and then on this right side is the blower motor, which has to come out and it sits behind the evap core. So we're gonna hopefully unbolt it, and the evap core will have enough room to pull forward a bit to get the blower motor up and out of the way. Okay, so since we're working with a pretty tight area, I'm gonna remove the front seat. Now, this car's got a side impact airbag, which means you want to disconnect the battery before unplugging the seat. This is the connector here. And just take off the seat. You remove these plastic covers, and then there's 14mm bolts on each side. Okay, so there's a couple electrical wires you gotta get out of the way first. This one's the blower motor resistor, comes out. The blower motor itself, power, unplug that. Then there's a white connector up here you want to unplug. And then I might end up doing this, but it's optional. You can, this is a airbag connector. You can probably disconnect that, and this little purple guy here. Okay, so as far as fasteners, there's that 10mm on the bottom, and then there's going to be one up here, the top left. And then on the blower motor itself, there's going to be one up here, and then one on the side here, that guy. You can open up this access panel to get to it if you need to. Okay, so keeping in mind that you unbolted the bracket in the engine bay, this evap box should be able to come toward you about 1.5 inches. And that'll give us just enough room to clear both of these off of the threaded stud. And then we're gonna have to get the blower motor around this and down and out. I'm not gonna record that because it's a pain in the ass and it's gonna take a lot of wiggling, but just be patient with it. Try to move this around, you know, to the side probably, and take your time with trying to get this out. Okay, so after much convincing and time and wiggling, I got it out. I took off this bracket. I bent this tab out of the way for clearance. I unbolted this stuff here, again for more clearance. But it's out. You know, if you're at a shop doing this, or you're a shop tech, you might save time by just taking the refrigerant out of the system and pulling the box out. But it's out. Now I'll show you the seam. Yep, so that's our seam. There's this vibration dampening material that was covering it. Just took my finger, ran it up the seam, peeled it back. I'm gonna use a wire wheel on a drill to really clean this up and get all this old stuff out. But you can see it's leaking from all the way up here. And eventually, if this is left untreated, it's gonna crack all the way down and leak even more water. Okay, so I've begun removing the old material with the wire wheel. You can see it exposes some bare metal. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna clean it up a little bit more. Make sure you're using a respirator and you know, safety glasses when you do this. But what I'm gonna do next is clean it up a bit more. Then I'm gonna use a metal etching primer on it, and then a base coat just to seal it and make sure it's all good. Give it a day to dry, and then apply the new seam sealer. Okay, here it is after being cleaned with wax and grease remover and primered. Okay, 2 coats of just a top coat. Use like a Rust-Oleum satin or something. Okay, so the seam sealant has been applied. I'll link below which sealant I use. It's like the 3M urethane stuff. It's 20 bucks on Amazon. So now what I'm gonna do is try to get the blower motor back in, put all this stuff back, obviously get the blower motor back in. Now this is gonna be the hardest part. I'm not even gonna film it because this is gonna be a lot of cursing, but just take your time with it. Just like getting it out is gonna take some work to get it back in. Okay, just a quick note, I'm in the process of buttoning everything up, putting the wires back in place, putting back the rubber mat. And so this is the evap core, and it's probably a good time to clear it out. I have the resistor removed right now, and you can see there's a bunch of debris in there, and I've already pulled out like a handful of stuff, so just be careful in there. There's you know, fans and AC lines that you don't really want to hit, but just gently go in there and scoop out a bunch of the debris. Okay, so the blower motor's back in, the evap core is bolted in. Just giving you some reference points here. What the hell? So this white connector goes here, connect to the evap core. There's a nut here, that 10mm nut. There's the one on the bottom holding the two. Make sure that the blower motor is behind the evap core. And then of course your resistor power for the blower motor is here. Let's see here. There's a 10mm nut up in here, and this blue connector airbag. For me, I took out the 2 Phillips screws behind this dash panel so it'll pull out. Just make sure to put those back if you remove them. And then you got this bracket here, and that should be it. So next I'm gonna put back the trim paneling and the glove box, and this should be almost done here. Okay, so the glove box is all put back together. This box is connected, and now we're ready to put the ECU back. Okay, so ECU is back in. Our 2 panels are back in. All the trim pieces are good. I just gotta put the seat back in, but that's pretty much it. So give your seam sealant at least a day or 2 to cure. A lot of the modern stuff should cure pretty quick, but I like to just give them a day at least. Once you're finished with the job, take a garden hose, spray it into the cowl, and see if you get water ingress. You shouldn't if you've done the job right. If it leaks, I would check some of the other seams along the firewall there, but that passenger side seam is usually the main culprit. But if you guys have any questions, just feel free to comment below, and thanks for watching.